Hi, I'm Nathaniel, and this is a video about the Rana boylii, or the foothill yellow-legged frog. So what is this frog? Well, this is it, but let's be more specific. The foothill yellow-legged frog typically grows to be about 1.5 to 3.2 inches long, and it has a variety of colors. It's been seen with black, dark brown, reddish brown, gray, olive, and green skin. Some frogs have light marks over their eyes, as you can see with these frogs here. Some of them are more noticeable than others. Underneath, however, around the belly and back limbs, its colors can range from white to yellow, and it'll have a gradient that slowly turns yellow towards the bottom of the frog, which is also around the back limbs, hence the name foothill yellow-legged frog. The throat and the throat and the front of the frog will have the most modeling or pattern of irregular marks compared to the rest of the body. The back feet are completely webbed. The front feet, however, are not. The bones between the ankles and the knees are extra long, and it'll span about half the length of the body of the frog. But does a foothill yellow-legged frog have differences in its look depending on its gender? The answer is yes. The males have a bulbar swelling on their first finger, which is covered in the papillae. Females, on the other hand, can be up to 20 to 25 millimeters larger than the males and larger than the males and lack the rough swollen area around their first finger that the males do. Instead, their first finger is longer than the males. During the mating season, you'll notice that the male's front arms are more swollen and they'll have larger nuptial pads. This is so that it'll be easier for them to grip the female during mating. And the tadpoles will be olive or olive gray and have dark spots on its fins and tail. They can grow to be a size of 18 millimeters in length from the head to the body and then 29 millimeters in tail length. Well, what does its habitat look like? Well, it lives in streams, springs, freshwater lakes, and creeks. They can be found at an elevation of up to 5,000 feet. They like living in creeks with rocky bottoms more than bodies of water with different kinds of floors. They also live in a large variety of plants, such as the valley foothill hardwood, foothill hardwood conifer, ponderosa pine mixed conifer, and wet meadows. They're closely associated with streams, given how they're rarely seen far away from the water's edge. Historically, they have been recorded to have been found from the Willamette River drainage in Oregon down south to the San Gabriel Mountains in California, and they were one of the most common amphibians you could find. However, nowadays this range is shrunken, and they are completely gone in some areas, like the San Gabriel Mountains and Monterey County's coast in California, and only a limited number of them can be found in the foothills of the southern Sierra Nevada mountains. The foothill yellow-legged frog will use its habitat to its advantage. Typically, the behavior of the foothill yellow-legged frog is fairly constant. They are active during the day but are very shy. They can be seen basking on the rocks or along the shore and are otherwise inactive unless it's mating season, whereas some frogs have been seen traveling hundreds of meters to certain breeding sites. If they are startled or frightened, they'll jump into the water and hide. If they are in clear water, they'll hide under the overhanging rocks, but in muddy or less clear water with silt on the floor, they'll dive down, stir up the sand and silt, and hide underneath it. Naturally, the foothill yellow-legged frog has to eat to survive. The food is a necessary input of the animal and it gives a necessary output of energy, allowing it to continue to live and grow. It has a variety of creatures it preys on. The majority of its diet consists of insects and it includes spiders, beetles, true bugs, and flies. Some frogs, however, have been found to have other insects inside its stomach, like grasshoppers, hornets, carpenter ants, water snails, small moths, water striders, and stoneflies. They capture these insects with its tongue, as most frogs do, and they simply use their eyes to find them. This could be an example of a feedback loop. The eyes identify the prey, it then signals the tongue to grab it, and then the food will give energy to the frog, allowing it to continue to hunt. The tadpoles will eat algae, diatoms, and debris off rocks and vegetations in the streams, rivers, and creeks that they are born in. Of course, most animals have predators. The foothill yellow-legged frog is no exception. Rough-skinned newts and certain sunfish both will eat the egg masses that are laid by the females. Sacramento squawfish will eat the egg masses, tadpoles, and adult frogs. Insects like diving beetles, water bugs, water scorpions, herons, some songbirds, raccoons, and garter snakes will eat the tadpoles and adult frogs. The garter snakes will typically prey on the tadpoles or adult frogs depending on its species. For example, the Sierra garter snake will eat adult frogs, while the Oregon aquatic garter snake will eat tadpoles. In addition to this, the American bullfrog both competes for resources and will prey on the foothill yellow-legged frog, and the helminth worm parasite will attach itself to the frog. So, what is the role of the foothill yellow-legged frog in the ecosystem? Well, its role is to keep their populations in check. Tadpoles will control algae growth as it's the main thing that the tadpoles will eat, and the adult frogs will control the populations of the insects it eats while also providing a stable food source to its predators. In addition, they are also sensitive to their environment. When a change happens, like pollution, the frogs will die more easily, and as such, they are a good indicator to humans when an environmental change is happening. So, what does the life cycle of a foothill yellow legged frog look like? Well, to be honest, we don't know it much. In the wild, once in the wild, scientists recaptured one female frog, which was recorded to have been 3 years old, and the estimated lifespan in the wild is about 3 to 5 years. But the lifespan could well extend to 10 to 15 if it's similar to the other closely related frog species we know about. Its lifespan is limited by natural predators as well as the helminth worm parasite. 5 to 37 days after the eggs are laid, the eggs will hatch and tadpoles will come out. The tadpoles will stay around the egg mass for about a week before leaving, which could help with species identification. Eggs will hatch much faster in warmer weather and slower in colder weather. Tadpoles can reach a size of up to 5 centimeters before metamorphosis into frogs begins. They typically metamorphose in 3 to 4 months, but the rate of growth depends on the water temperature and food availability. Frogs will reach reproductive maturity after reaching a snout to vent length of 40 millimeters, with the reproductive organs beginning to function in the first summer post metamorphosis, and the actual breeding occurring in the second post metamorphosis year. However, some frogs have been recorded to reproduce just 6 months after metamorphosis. Females have to be 2 years old to reproduce, but males only have to be one. So, what does reproduction look like? Well, male frogs will move after the snow thaws, so breeding season typically will begin in April to March. Mating season will also vary depending on the elevation of the habitat. In the lower elevations, breeding will typically occur in late March to May, but in higher elevations, it'll occur in June to August. Females will arrive once the temperature has warmed further. The males will set up calling sites where they will stay and call out to the females. They will typically do this underwater as the stream waters are too loud and they'll drown out the noise of the frogs' croaks. Reproduction also happens in the water as eggs are fertilized externally. The females will lay eggs exclusively in the slow flowing waters of streams and rivers, but not ponds and lakes like how other frogs do. The eggs are laid in tight, compact egg masses similar to grape clusters and are attached to the sides of underwater stones and, occasionally, vegetation that are facing downstream. Only one cluster is laid per female, and each cluster holds around 100 to 1,000 eggs, with 900 on average. The eggs have three jelly envelopes, usually being black on top and white or light gray on the bottom. After being laid, the females will brush silt on top of it for camouflage. Past this, however, the parents do not put any effort into the offspring and just leave them in their stream. Finally, I'll go over some threats to the foothill yellow-legged frog. Of course, some natural threats are, as we said before, the predators and the helminth worms. Some non-naturally occurring threats are droughts, which force the frogs onto land, increasing the chance that they'll be eaten, and it also dries out the water sources, increasing the chance that the eggs will be eaten and or having their moisture taken away. On the flip side, floods aren't good either, as they detach egg masses from the rocks. One more of the many threats to foothill yellow-legged frog is predation and competition by non-native species, such as fish or, as mentioned before, the American bullfrog. This is one thing brought up in the debate between anglers and conservationists. Anglers want to plant fish for fishing and water sport, but it threatens the survival of the foothill yellow-legged frog because of predation and competition for resources. So, what do you think? Should we allow fish to be planted in streams and creeks if it can endanger the foothill yellow-legged frog?